breakout room merged with the big bets one. So we have 4 sharings here. So maybe we can start off with the procurement frameworks and hiring service providers. DK or Joseph, could you share some of the main takeaways?
You wanna go ahead, DK? I can do it as well, but up to you.
I'll kick it off. So we did a background on procurement. Procurement's obviously lasted roughly, I don't know, a little over 8 weeks. It's been a long process. We've had 3 different snapshots go through, but it's been an iterative process, right? So we started up saying, hey, this is the right thing to do. We should do an RFP process for all these security services. Let's get the conversation with all these different security service providers. Let's make sure that we adhere to what they would like from this process, and then let's also discuss on the side of the projects as well, right? The projects are in there negotiating. They're paying for these services on a regular basis. So how do we create something to just get the ball moving one day at a time, right? We just want to keep on making progress. So we've been making progress over the last 8 weeks. Joseph put up the proposal today for the election of the 3 primary members on the committee, as well as 5 multi-sig members in terms of the fund disbursement. And that will be the kind of the next step in terms of, okay, let's get people dedicated and paid and to continue to focus on this work. So we can spend the right amount of time to get it right. Right now, we had this as an open discussion during the breakout of, okay, do we stick to security services as the initial remit? Do we do a 6-month term? If it's working, we can add to it. If it's not working, then we don't need to add to it. There's between the research group, I forget Joseph's acronyms, but ADRC and ADPC or whatever he has them, the procurement committee, and then also the research and development side of things, which is specifically adheres to the needs of the DAO. They can kind of commingle as well, right? There are some complementary areas where one can lean on the other. So we just kind of discussed that. We discussed, do we keep the remit small? Different things that we need to be continuously monitoring for, making sure that we're being transparent in the process, and making sure that we're doing post-engagement analysis between a security service provider and whoever is using the project utilizing the services. So that's the quick and dirty. But for now, we're going to keep the remit on security, but we can expand if there's an appetite for in the future.
Sweet. Joseph, anything to add? If not, I can move on to the next breakout theme.
Yeah, I think not much to add from my end. We just, as DK said, even discussed the potential interoperability between the Arbitrum Research and Development Collective and the Procurement Committee. For example, in drafting new frameworks where the Procurement Committee would necessitate some market research on industry rate, for example, would be able to leverage the sort of research CARDC to get some research carried out and provide the Procurement Committee with more insight into how they want to achieve a particular to be ratified procurement framework. And I think, as DK said, it's sort of looking forward and being proactive to never be put in a situation where we have to scramble to set up a procurement framework, that, the procurement committee, as part of its mandate, will also have the creation of further frameworks for different verticals, the creation of a subsidy fund for security services, and the creation of a means test to see which projects are actually eligible for a subsidy fund. Because, if you're going to have a subsidy fund to subsidize security service costs, you need to make sure that they're going to projects that actually need them, as opposed to projects that want them but can already afford them due to having large funding rounds, etc. So yeah, that's just a TLDR of what was briefly discussed.
Sweet, thanks for sharing. So let's move on to the next breakout, taking big bets. So coin flip or treasure, do you guys want to chime in with the main learnings and takeaways?
Flip, you want to?
Can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Okay, I'm having some network issues, but I've just tried to share what we discussed. We identified what we called 5 sort of big bets within the ecosystem that we think are worth looking at. Really finding ways to take the Arbitrum tech stack and extend that out as broadly as possible, and ideally in a permissionless fashion. The next was looking at ways to create a diversity of economies. So that's really making sure that not just gaming, not just DeFi, we identify all the key areas, SocialFi, etc., and we really make sure that we're able to put bets across all of them so that the chain has that breadth. Healthy, sustainable treasury. Okay, so this was linked to this idea of saying it is worth us finding ways to look at how we strengthen our treasury and find ways to take the Arbitrum token itself and give it more utility and find ways to drive activity around the Arbitrum token and bring that on chain. So that's on chain liquidity and the like. Fourth one was betting builders. So really this idea of how can we take things like incubators, access to service providers, mentors, connection to builders in our ecosystem, and really just make it the preferred destination for builders to come. And when they are here, know that they will have access to support. And that's not just about grants, for example, like STIP, et cetera, that we're doing. It's really making sure we take a more holistic approach. And the last one was institutional funds / native assets, taking a bet on how we can really take our TVL lead and continue to grow that, so that as we start looking at a world that goes beyond just crypto assets, we are already the preferred name, that we are the name that people now trust to secure and protect their assets. And as more and more assets come, that's already happening. So native minting was a big part of that. So those were our 5 sort of big bets. Let me just see if there's something I missed here. Actually, I think I kind of, on each of the topics, I covered sort of the bet itself. On the very first one, it was sort of working with the foundation and OCL on possible licensing efforts. And this sort of idea around permissionless licensing for people who want to build L2s using the Arbitrum tech stack, finding sort of a smart way to take advantage of the way that we as Arbitrum have built, which has been this approach that you can just simply use it and build on it. And you don't necessarily need to ask for permission. But so sort of stepping away from where Optimism and others have really tried to make it a bit more curated, and you're still paying, but you still need to be involved. Here we can find a solution that just hopefully makes this wide open and drives for the tech stack.
Thank you. John, AJ, anything to add?
Oh, yeah. Just give a shout out to Alex at Savvy DeFi. I thought he said it well. Just the general framework of here are the strategic pillars the ecosystem needs to succeed, and then within each of those, taking a concentrated bet. I might be butchering how he said it. I'm sure we'll discuss it more on the forums, but I liked that framing.
Yeah, can you folks hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, on the license stuff, I think Coin covered it pretty well. At Offchain, we've been looking at, we've been working with the foundation. We've been seeing that there's been a lot of friction and hesitation for 2 different categories for interacting with the DAO. One is like you expect like layer 2s that want to use Arbitrum technology. They don't want to be Orbits. There's 5 teams sort of post like that conversation between the foundation and DAO in the summer that have like LOIs to basically commit to giving sequencer revenue back to the Arbitrum community when they launch. There's a lot of interest that we're starting to see on layer 3s on top of other layer 2s who want to use Arbitrum to scale. They like to stack, whether it's any trust or whatever it is, to do it, and figuring out ways that we can get the technology as broadly distributed as possible in a sustainable way that's not competitive but building alongside. So I think we've been working, me and Patrick, on this for a bit. Obviously, Offchain's pretty involved in this because of the licensing component. I think Patrick probably has something by the end of the year to share with the community, but we're really excited about that.
All right, cool. Let's go to the next breakout, and that is how should the DAO be thinking about the future of the sequencer? Like what kind of mental models should we be taking on? So Matt, do you mind taking this on?
Yeah, so we had a really interesting conversation around basically what should the future of the sequencer look like. So Offchain Labs has proposed Time Boost, not proposed the DAO, but has this sequencer design that looks to iterate on the current first in, first out sequencer that the DAO has today. So likely at some point in the future, like we'll see a proposal to implement Time Boost. So the DAO will probably have to decide between this new model and the current first in, first out centralized sequencer that we have today. And also there might be other proposals that come up. So maybe someone like Astria will go in and propose that we should use their shared sequencer. So it's something that we definitely need to start thinking about as far as like, what is the north goal of the sequencer? What does the DAO actually want? Do we want to create the best user experience for the people using, Arbitrum? Do we want to drive as much value to the DAO or ARB token as possible? Do we want to optimize for interoperability with other L2s? And moral of the story, we came to like three main thoughts, like three things the DAO should be thinking about, which is MEV extraction, liveness, and censorship resistance. So as far as our small group, we kind of all agreed that probably some quasi-decentralized sequencer where there was, something more than one and less than 100 entities able to, fulfill the role of batch poster in L2 or, actually propose these sequence blocks on L1. But at the end of the day, like this was a small group and it wasn't representative of the DAO. We kind of all also thought that the probably optimal use of the sequencer was create the best possible user experience. So rather than, driving more revenue to the DAO, we create the best user experience for people using Arbitrum, which hopefully, gives us a competitive advantage. And then maybe, far out in the future, we can think about extraction. But for now, that is more important to create a very competitive roll up as far as, the user experience. Really, we talked about Suave. We talked about, implementing Suave as a way of kind of not at the sequencer level, but at the user level, driving like rebates back to the users so that they got a portion of the MEV that they create or a portion of the total MEV created by a block. We talked about, cross-domain MEV as it might be in the future of large value, whereas today it's really, cross roll-up MEV, whereas today it's really all, sex dex arb on arbitrage on Arbitrum. Sorry about that. But moral of the story was, it's something the DAO needs to really be thinking about. We need to have this goal set as far as what do we want to do? And then once we have a goal set, we can work on optimizing on creation of a sequencer that allows us to fulfill those needs. But as far as MEV extraction, as far as censorship resistance, and as far as liveness, we kind of need to make a decision on where we want the DAO to go, on where we want what we want the protocol to look like in, a year, 2 year, 5 years time. So it's something that hasn't really been a discussion about. Likely a lot of delegates probably aren't even super familiar with, the different potential proposals of what the sequencer could look like in the future. But at the end of the day, like our main output was that we need more research on the subject, and we need the DAO to kind of at least shine light on where, if it agrees with us that the idea is like, quasi decentralized, best for users, or maybe the DAO disagrees and thinks that something else like driving the most possible value to the DAO or ARB token is likely a better use of the sequencer in the future.
Appreciate it. Lastly, let's go to T-Norm. Let's share some of the learnings from the Staffing the Arbitrum DAO breakout session. Trevor, can you hear and see me okay?
Hey, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Somehow my microphone got disconnected, so it wouldn't let me click. My bad. We had a very humble little work stream, so thanks to everyone who joined. We kind of broke down this into onboarding talent, all the way to kind of cultivating and incubating talent and then retaining talent. I think is a good way to kind of frame this. So right now, starting at onboarding, it's pretty hard to get involved with the DAO. I think we all kind of recognize that Discourse is a horrendous platform in a lot of ways, and this isn't only unique to Arbitrum. It's the same thing in Optimism or any of the big L2s, down to like even smaller protocol level DAOs that are still very active, like Gitcoin. So we talked about needing to have some sort of infrastructure to bring in on like a regular cadence and update new people to the DAO on kind of what's happening, what work streams are active, what proposals are in the mix. And communicate those opportunities to contribute. So that's one need. From there, in terms of kind of recognizing and investing in talent, we did, I think we all kind of came to some agreement that grants programs and like a more centralized ability to identify talent and invest in it, whether in initiatives or individuals, is probably the best route. So something like Plurality Labs, this is honestly where I think the DAO is doing well in finding and investing in talent through kind of their Firestarter program right now. Where it starts to become tricky is once something has been delivered or you reach a certain threshold of bordering on full-time engagement, incubating talent. And this is where you talk about like part-time to full-time employees. And I think there is a serious lack of legal infrastructure within the DAO right now. And this is where I'd put a little personally, I'd put a little stress and call out the foundation a little bit to do a bit more there, maybe on Off-Chain Labs to try and invest a little bit more in making it easier from people from wherever you live to get involved and stay involved with a bit more financial and regular support. And I think that kind of comes in the form of incubation, as I said before, but beyond something like a grant program can really sustain. And then from there, we're kind of talked about at a high level, putting in some real actual like corporate entities in place in different jurisdictions. I know there's been talks about this kind of for a while, but spinning out new entities, whether it's under the foundation or whether it's under kind of trusts in kind of the US, in Europe, in Dubai, in Asia, kind of all those pieces. So that's kind of where we got together. But I think there's definitely, based on what everyone was saying, there's a need to have infrastructure to retain talent. Like the money's there, it's just the bureaucracy and the legal frameworks that are pretty seriously lacking right now.
All right, thanks for sharing. So I guess an actionable on my part is that I will work with all of you guys to kind of consolidate the learnings, and then I'll put them into a doc, and maybe I'll share that on the forum. And then this actually concludes DAO Day. I really appreciate everyone for dialing in, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, night, your time. Hope you guys had a great 6 panels and a breakout session. I personally felt that all the conversations were super productive. So everything is recorded. It will be uploaded onto the Arbitrum Foundation's YouTube channel. We'll do a quick shout out on our socials once the recordings are out. And again, thanks everyone for joining in, and we'll see you guys at the next DAO Day. Have a good one, guys.